Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Teresa's Crafty Cabana, and today I'm going to do some Valentine's jelly prints. I wanted to use my perfect pearls, and I also had these new mica powders that I wanted to try, the purple and the red. So I'm just going to put together some supplies. I've got some die cut hearts just out of a piece of cardstock, and I cut those out of Dollar Tree hearts. Then I've got these stamps, just the alphabet stamps that I picked out, and these I'm thinking I'll use the X to make like XO. Maybe I'll make XO with the heart. I'm still deciding what to do. Then I've got this background heart stamp. It's a rubber stamp from Hero Arts. Here are the two purple and red mica powders that are new that I'm going to use. I'm just going to lay down, this is my paper stencil, and just gonna do a similar thing like I did to my bubbles. If you'd seen my bubbles video, I'm just gonna use my white perfect pearls to kind of tie the colors together, and I'm just gonna put it in the center of each of the hearts, and then around the hearts on the border part I'm gonna use the reds and the purples and the pinks. I do clean off my brush in between with my little rag here, and then I bring in my colors. I'm going to try to start with my lighter colors, so this light pink, that's the perfect pearl pink, and then the darker colors over on the right, those are the new mica powders. They're actually from Michael's, the Spinnet. I don't know if you know what that is, but they are used for like resin, like making those tumblers and putting the mica powder in the resin for that. So the colors are really bold for the red and the purple, and I really liked them. And the purple, it looked a lot darker inside the container, and then once I put it on the gel plate, it was a kind of like a softer purple. I really liked the colors, and they blended so nicely together. So I really think these are definitely high quality and good mica powders to use. After I removed my stencil, I wanted to have a little bit more in the background with the hearts, so I used just some soft colors here. I used these are my Dollar Tree mica powders. There's a light pink and a gold, so I just used those two colors on each heart as I was filling in the background. I didn't want these to be as prominent as those first hearts. Alright, so now I'm ready to see what this print looks like. I'm just going to use a white on the background of this. I like white with the perfect pearls and the mica powders because the white picks up a little bit of that color, blends it just a little, and it gives it just a soft color that I can't really get with a much darker color. But they do look good with dark colors too because they really pop off of like a black background. For this, I was wanting lighter colors though for Valentine's Day. You can see here, I rolled off my brayer a little bit too much paint, so I had to go back in and apply another coat of paint. If you ever are playing around with the right amount of paint, definitely you want to be able to see through it, but you don't want to see the plate. So I had seen the plate, and that was when I knew it just wasn't going to pull up all that mica powder. I am going to let that set for a few minutes. I wanted the paint to dry. While that's drying, I have my second gel plate here, and I'm just going to do the start of another print. doing a little ombre with this one. There's khaki in the middle, there's a shell pink, and the white on the bottom. I'm just trying to get even coverage on this plate and not have too much paint left on, because what I'm going to do is use my background heart stamp. And if you have too much paint when you try to stamp, it just kind of moves around and it doesn't get the best impression. And you want to be careful not to wiggle when you do this, because again, you just won't get a really good impression if you try to wiggle the stamp. I went ahead and just stamped off the paint onto another piece of cardstock. It's very light, but it's a nice impression. And then I just took a little bit more of the hearts from the bottom. Now at this point, I did let the paint on the hearts dry overnight, but I did pull this perfect pearl print and mica powder print. And I think these hearts look so dreamy, and I really love how those hearts in the background really do fade kind of to the back. So I thought that looked really cool, very dimensional, and like you can see where the white paint was, it's not all white because it did pick up on the powders on the plate and kind of created like a pink color. To dress up this print, I'm just going to use those stamps, the X and the O, and I'm just going to put those in the background and just kind of build up a little bit of a print. Just a design, and it will be XOXO. And I'm just going to offset each of the lines by just a little bit. And then that finishes this print. I think that the stamping on top of the paint does a really great job. It blends in on the perfect pearls, but on the paint it stands out more. So this print that I'm doing right now, this was dried overnight on my plate. I don't typically do this, but I kind of was curious how well it would perform. So this paint is completely dry, and typically when I do it and I dry it, it's still a little bit wet. While I was pulling that print, I decided to put paint on this other one that I had pulled the perfect pearl and the mica powders from, just to see what a ghost print would look like. While that one's drying, I'm going to put the paint on this other one and go ahead and pull that print at the same time. That's what's nice about working with two jelly plates, is you can get to working on another project as the other one is drying, and then you're not as tempted to pull it too soon. So you could see this ghost print. It's very light. You actually can't really see the background hearts, only the foreground hearts on the ghost print, but it is still very pretty. So because my paint had dried overnight, and I don't know if that was why, it didn't all pull up, but the paint that I had put on top, a lot of it pulled up, so it looked like I had a full print. It just had a lot of kind of splotchy areas, but I really like it. I thought it looked really cool. So I knew that I was going to be able to get at least one more print out of this without any issue. And I'm just using white as the color. And let's see what this one looks like. You can already tell just by me pulling it up here. There's color on the paper, but there's still paint left on the plate. And I do wonder if it's because I let it dry overnight that I'm getting so many pulls from this. So the white areas are the areas that pulled up on the other print. And then this one had a few areas that didn't pull up that I'll pull on a third print. Instead of using white, I'm going to use a pink and yellow ombre for this one. At this point, I have too much paint on my gel plate, so I do have to brayer off some of this paint to get a thinner coat. But you can see how I'm going back and forth to get a really nice ombre. I wanted to bring the pink down into the yellow and the yellow up into the pink. So that's looking good for the amount of paint. And since I really want this one to pull up what's left on the plate, I am going to leave this one to dry just a little bit longer than I did the other two. The other two I probably let dry about a minute. This one I left for about 3 minutes. I can tell the difference from pulling this third print that it was pulling up a lot more of the paint just by letting it dry a little bit longer. And I really like it. It looks so nice with the dark pink kind of on the edges and little hearts. It had this leftover metallic color on my plate. I don't even know what that was from, but I thought it looked really cool. So here are my 3 prints from just this one design. And I think they all look great. They're like Valentine's grunge, but not like too dark or, you know, black. So I liked how these turned out. These will make some great card bases. For this one, I'm going to do a little bit of a stamp on top of that. It was a little plain because the hearts were really only on the corners and I wanted to see those hearts a little bit more. So for this print, I'm just putting some ombre, khaki, and white. I need to do my stamping again. And I'll just move this gel plate out of the way while I stamp onto this print. And I have a little bit of space at the bottom where I wanted some hearts, so I did the same thing where I stamped on the bottom of the plate. It did smear a little, but that's okay. When I transferred it onto my print, you couldn't tell it smeared. Now, I did not let this one dry on the plate. What I did is I put that heart stencil, paper stencil over the design as it was wet, and I'm just trying to remove some of the paint around those hearts. For the areas that didn't pull up, I just put my stencil back down and just rubbed in the areas I wanted to remove more paint. Being careful not to touch inside where the heart was. It's a little tricky, but it was working pretty well. And it did leave behind some of the hearts anyway on the plate. I thought it was looking pretty cool like this. So for this one, I wanted to layer some kind of like gold and whites around my hearts. Although I didn't have a clean brush to begin with, so the paint got on the plate first, but that's okay. So for the rest of the hearts, I'm just gonna kind of do some gold and the white, and then I'll do a little bit of the color in the background behind the gold and the white. Just building up the pearls in the back and trying to get into all of those little hearts so that it will shimmer just in the heart area. Now the paint that I used is a matte paint, so if there's shininess through the matte paint, you should really be able to see it. So I feel like I have nice coverage, and to pull my print, I'm going to use this like a chalky blue, pastel-y blue color. This color is called Seafoam. My test here was to see, since I didn't let this dry overnight and I'm pulling the print kind of day of, if it all would pull up, and it did. It pulled up all of the paint and all of the pearls and the mica powders. And you can see a little bit inside the hearts that the shimmer powder shines through. And then there's some where the stamp didn't pull up the hearts all the way, so there was no powder to shine through. So it's just a neat looking design. I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. Now I'm taking that same heart stencil, and this time I wanted to see if I could do a stencil on a stencil. So I've got this PM Artist Studios Poetic Word Script stencil, and I'm going to just pounce some color around the stencil with my little blender brush here. I've never tried this before. I usually do my brayer for all of my applying my paint, so I wasn't sure what to expect from doing this way. And I did probably put a lot too much paint. It was a little tricky. I think if I did this again, I would put the paint on the scrap piece of paper, pull from it, and then bring it onto the hearts. It was just way too much paint. And I think that's what's great about the brayer is it just really pulls back that paint so that it's, number one, it's nice and smooth, and number two, it just blends it out and gives you more coverage, or more even coverage. So this removed very easily because it wasn't attached too much to the plate, so it wasn't too sticky. But you can already see that it wasn't the best impression, and I think it's because of the way that I applied the paint. I was kind of going for the conversation hearts here with my colors, and then this red I wanted to put in the background, almost like how you'd have the red words on the conversation hearts. It did take me a little bit to get this paint to dry. Even as I was doing this, some little areas were picking up some of the paint. So it's just an experiment here. I did shake on some of the powder onto the plate, and then that way when I put my white down, it would kind of turn a little bit pink. I didn't really need my placement tool for this because it went almost all the way across. I'm just making sure that feels dry before I pull it. And you can see here just on that purple heart and the pink heart, that paint, I probably could have let this dry to the plate a little bit, or to the paper a little bit longer, and it might have had a better impression. But that's okay, because now I was able to get a second gel print. This one pulled a little bit better. It pulled off some of the colors more smoothly, but it wasn't the best. This one I would say was maybe more of like one of my flops. I probably wouldn't repeat this, so what not to do. Don't use a stencil brush, or don't use as much paint. So having done that, I went ahead and put another coat of this blue over my big gel plate. This is the 8x10 gel plate. And I'm going to use the Poetic Script stencil one more time from PM Artist Studios. And I'm just going to go into all of the creases with my fingers over the paper. This is just copy paper. And I'm going to remove this very carefully. Now again, this is over paint. The stencil is over paint and not onto the jelly plate directly, so it came off very easily. It didn't feel like it was going to break. Next, I'm lining up another piece of paper while those words are still wet. And then you can see left on the plate, I still have the outline of the words. So I've got the positive and the negative of the words, and then what's left on the plate. So to fill this in, I took my pearls and my mica powders and I went ahead and just filled in the words. Then to capture the shimmer on the edges of this print, I just used a light gold color. I'm using copy paper here. This one is probably one I'll turn into an envelope. Whenever I want to do an envelope, I do this larger gel plate and then I use copy paper. It folds nice compared to the cardstock, which is a little harder to fold. To clean my plate, I just used some Mod Podge. And I'm just using that same negative words to pull up what was left on the plate. So you can see there's a little bit of color now inside the words. Then I'm going to use this Dragonfly diamond glaze to pull up a second pull, and this is on the other print. So I got 3 prints out of this one, these 2, but of the 3, my favorite is definitely the full red one. Here I'm trying to show you where the diamond glaze is shimmery, but it was hard to see on camera. But I really like how this one turned out because the blue really popped off the red and the purple, and the gold just kind of tied it all together. So I thought this one looked really nice. So here I'll go through the prints that I made. This one had the matte hearts and then the shiny pearls in the background. This is the stamped hearts on top of the ombre pink and yellow background. And then here are the 2 prints. This was the positive and then there was the negative of what I pulled in the same color family. And you can see some of the shine in the background of those hearts. And this is just what I had stamped off. Pretty simple. These were my flops. Not too great. I mean, I really like the colors that I was going for here with the conversation hearts, but it didn't really turn out how I thought it would. And here's my ghost print, and then the XOXO Perfect Pearl and Mica Powder print. So my favorite of the 2 are the Perfect Pearl and Mica Powder XOXO print, and the large red and purple with the blue words. So those were my favorite out of this set. Although I really do like those 2 grungy ones too in the middle with the positive and the negative grunge. So I think this was a really fun experiment, just kind of seeing what I can make for Valentine's Day. Next, I'll have to see what I make with these prints. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being here and happy crafting.